Good morning, Brownsville. Good afternoon, good evening, depending on when you're watching this feed. If this is your first time here, welcome. My name is Frankie Olivo. Our program focuses on the very important issues that are affecting our local community. We have shed light on injustices and we have allowed for our platform, this mic, to be that of the voice of the people. Now, if this is something that you can see yourself supporting, we ask that you like, comment, and share this live feed. Now, as of late, our Facebook page is at risk of being taken down. The powers that be do not want you, the voter, the constituent, to know the truth. But remember, we will not be silenced. Now, if you're really about the cause and you want to stand up to corruption and you want to hold our elected leaders accountable, well, we ask that you subscribe to our social media platforms. Currently, right now, we are streaming this live feed on all of our social media platforms, and we ask that you follow them. I'm even going to include my Instagram down the road. But for now, you could find us under Frankie Olivo on X, formerly known as Twitter, and also on Facebook. And on Facebook, we have two profiles, our personal and this one that you're seeing right now. We could also be found on Facebook under Olivo Frankie. We ask that you subscribe to our YouTube channel titled Frankie Olivo TV. Remember, Good Morning Brownsville will come on Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. religiously. So make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel titled Frankie Olivo TV. We will not be silenced. And always remember, Brownsville, I am forever grateful to each and every one of you for the time and attention that you give us. Thank you so much for that. How we doing, chat? How we doing? Good morning. I hope y'all have been having a great week. It's nice to see pictures of all the Chuckies going back to class. Everyone's energetic. It's a new year, new beginnings. We've also seen, I guess, the other side of the coin. We were tagged on several posts where at the high school level, in particular Pace and Porter, where there were some issues in regards to the lunch hour. And we understand, being the first day, it's going to be hectic. It might be chaotic. We hope that administration, staff members, not just at those schools in question, but throughout the district and throughout the schools within the city of Brownsville, Cameron County, South Texas, they work out the kinks. Again, it's the first few days, and we expect things not to go right. We ask that you have a little bit of patience, but again, if you have some genuine concerns, make sure you're vocal about them. And if you need help, reach out to us. We'll do what we can in making sure that your issues, that your problems that you or your child are facing at the schools these first few days are addressed. But again, first few days, everyone's trying to get back into it. It's mayhem. The streets at 6:37 in the morning are chaotic. Traffic is back to normal again. So while we understand and recognize that things aren't possibly working out the way we'd like, it's the first few days. It's going to take a while. We understand that, there have been some issues for these lunch hours. But the most important thing is that your child is being fed. That's the most important thing. Yesterday, there's an individual that reached out to me and said, "Oh, Frankie, these people complaining, these parents complaining, but what about their kids on the video games? They could go 8-10 hours straight on their video games and they don't complain about food. They don't wake up. Boy, once it comes back to school, mijito and mijita, Again, we understand both sides, and all we ask our community is for a little bit of patience, because we understand that the schools and the administrators, they want to do everything possible to help facilitate this. Again, they deal with hundreds of students at one time. We hope this will not be the norm moving forward. We can guarantee you that. Just have a little bit of patience and confidence. We're more than sure that those leaders at those campuses will quickly work out those logistics. in a timely manner. But again, if this issue is persisting, contact us. Again, our job isn't to blast people. No, our job is to help facilitate things. That's all we want. But all we ask once again is for a little bit of patience. Yo ni tengo hijos en la escuela, pero what the hell is going on? Chi. Today, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be talking about a federal investigation that led to a raid of a bakery in Los Fresnos, Texas. It led to the arrest of owners as well as the detention of employees. The owners were indicted for allegedly harboring undocumented immigrants, providing them with a living quarters at the place of business. The investigation began after authorities received tips of these individuals working there and staying there. Specifically, the federal agents did conduct a worksite enforcement action against this bakery, which did result in several arrests and detentions. This has touched the hearts and minds of people here locally. We always ask, what would what would it mean if that was my family? And living in a border town, we can possibly relate to that. We possibly are the sons of immigrants, our family members. All they want is to live the American dream. So whenever we hear of ICE raids, of people being detained, we understand that this is a humanitarian issue, and we don't want to sound cold-hearted, because at the end of the day, we feel for these people. That is how we will start today's show. Thank you so much for tuning in, Brownsville.
Ya se llevaron a todos los trabajadores de aquí de Avis. Los muchachos nada más venían a comprar pan. Literal, ni se metieron. Me di cuenta que nomás se metieron aquí y que corren atrás de ellos y los bajaron acá. Compartan, chicos. Miren cómo los llevan, nada más venían a comprar pan. Iban entrando. Ni siquiera entraron, nada más aquí se metieron y los siguieron.
Now, bakeries, bakeries here locally, or wherever you may find yourself, um, always seem to be uh, an important staple within the community. They play meaningful roles in society because they serve as more than just a place where you buy bread and pastries. Oftentimes, bakeries here locally, and we all have our favorites. Ayala's comes to mind. They have two locations, if I'm not mistaken, on Southmost and off of Military Highway. These places often become the local gathering spots, and they have formed a connection and a tradition. Maybe you or your family or your household is that one that every Saturday they stop for bread. Every Sunday they stop for barbacoa. They support the local economy because they help local suppliers. They provide jobs to residents. Many bakeries also give back to the community. They're actively involved They donate to food banks, to schools, to community events, and they share a sense of responsibility and care within society. You and I can agree we have frequented these areas, and they've become something of the norm. If you haven't already, ladies and gentlemen, speaking about norms, speaking about getting your pastries, if you haven't already, make sure you stop by with our friends at the Human Being. They could be located on Alton Glore. It doesn't matter whether you're looking for coffee or teas. They have a great variety. Highly recommended area. You won't be disappointed. So in case you're going to get your pan, in case you're going to get your pastries today or possibly this weekend, make sure you stop by with our friends at the Human Being and let them know that Frankie Olivo and Good Morning Brownsville sent you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time. Again, panaderias, we all grew up with that. Me personally, and now what we're starting to see is the Krispy Kreme donuts, the Dunkin' Donuts. What's the other one on Paredes? Shipley's? Is it Shipley's? Shipley's Donuts? We're starting to see that, and maybe they are the ones that are replacing these establishments. But you and I can agree, we grew up going to the panaderia. We grew up buying these conchas, these pans that we remember. This is something that has been part of our lives for a while now. At the end of the day, this represents, possibly even preserves our cultural heritage because they offer traditional baked goods that reflect the diversity here in the community. I understand, we're predominantly Hispanic, but in a way, these bakeries, while they nourish our big bellies and our big bodies, is part of the spirit of the neighborhoods that they serve. Now, as of late, we have seen how ICE raids in recent time have been something of the norm. The Rio Grande Valley in South Texas and throughout the United States, we've seen how United States Immigration and Customs Enforcement officers, ICE raids, have targeted undocumented immigrants. These operations have focused on workplaces, neighborhoods, and areas throughout not just the southern border here, but throughout the United States. It has led to multiple arrests and detentions. We saw from the video that we just played how there were people that were just customers that were going to get the daily bread for the family, and they were detained, unfortunately. Local communities, many of which, such as ours in Brownsville, we have deep roots, deep immigrant roots. And many people, after this happened, have responded with concern. We've seen protests throughout the country. Here in the city of Brownsville, we saw many protests. And many people were citing the fear of family separation. Many were arguing that this was a humanitarian issue, a big problem, because you're disrupting the lives of people. This possibly even increased the mistrust that people have with law enforcement agencies, with police officers. Advocacy groups in the region, they have criticized the raids of creating a climate of fear, and for this appropriately affecting Latinos, Mexicans. While the federal authorities, they have maintained that the operations are aimed at enforcing immigration laws and removing individuals with criminal records, with deportation orders, many of the citizens aren't buying that. Many people are angry at what has transpired as of late. And what did we see? What did we see here locally, because again, ever since President Trump's administration, we have seen how he has been very quick to address issues that he's been talking about throughout his campaign. Unfortunately, here locally, we have seen how he has been swift on those promises. His administration has been very proud of saying promises made, promises kept. In recent years, the city of Los Fresnos has changed, much like all of the Rio Grande Valley has changed. Most retail chains are coming to the town of around 8,500 people along Highway 100 called Ocean Boulevard. Suburbs of Brownsville are slowly expanding northward to Olmito and Bayview and ultimately Los Fresnos. The farmland and railroad tracks that started that city still remain. The bakery that we're going to talk about today, Abby's Bakery, has been in operation for more than 13 years. And this bakery, ladies and gentlemen, has been more than just a bakery for many people. It's not just a place where they sell conchas, donuts to the Los Fresnos locals. It has been more than that. People travel from Port Isabel, Harlingen, and even those tourists from South Padre Island. Well, now, Abby's Bakery, ladies and gentlemen, has been more than just a bakery as of late. We have seen how this bakery, ladies and gentlemen, has become a target based on President Trump's mass deportation plans. Now, we have seen, ladies and gentlemen, how the turn of this new year, immigration, ICE, have publicized these arrests. It is stated that here locally, there is close to 10% of the population is undocumented. I would dare argue with those figures. It could possibly be even more. And what have we seen from this? Well, we saw how this has been the norm as of late, and not just here in Los Fresnos, not just here in Brownsville, but throughout the country. Now, according to a criminal complaint filed in the Southern District of Texas, 8 undocumented immigrants were apprehended that day at Abby's Bakery, including 2 owners that were designated as witnesses in an investigation. Leonardo Baez and Nora Avila Guel were arrested for bringing in and harboring certain aliens and aiding and abetting for the harboring of these aliens. I'd like to present to you the criminal complaint, and I'd like to read it in detail, just to get an idea of what the federal government has said about this establishment. Are we on? Good. A press release was issued by the United States Attorney's Office of the Southern District of Texas. They titled their press release, "Bakery Owners Indicted for Harboring Illegal Aliens." It goes on to read, the owners, let me make it a little bit more. There we go. It goes on to read, the owners of Los Fresnos establishment have been charged with harboring illegal aliens. Leonardo Baez, 55, and Alicia Avila Guel, 46, both legal permanent residents of the United States, were originally charged by criminal complaint following a lawful enforcement action February the 12th. A federal grand jury has now returned a 3-count indictment against them. They are expected to appear before Magistrate Judge Tortella. Baez and Avila have owned and operated Abby's Bakery, and Dulce Cafe in Los Fresnos since 2012, according to the charges. The investigation began after authorities allegedly discovered the pair were potentially employing and housing illegal aliens at their residence, at their business, restaurant. The charges allege that the law enforcement conducted a consensual worksite enforcement action at Abby's Bakery and Dulce's Cafe. There, they allegedly identified several workers and others who were in the United States illegally or in the country under a B1, B2 visa without having the right to work. The charges allege that Baez and Avila Güell owners illegally hired these individuals to work in the restaurant while harboring them. According to the criminal complaint, law enforcement identified a room provided for employees in the same shopping plaza as the restaurant. According to the criminal complaint, law enforcement identified a room provided for employees in the same shopping plaza. It is alleged that housing two employees at the time of inspection who were unauthorized to work in the United States. It was a rectangular room with 6 mattresses on the floor, according to the charges. The worksite enforcement action allegedly resulted in the discovery of 2 illegal aliens unlawfully present in the United States and 6 B1, B2 visa holders who did not have the right to work in the U.S. Another individual was allegedly taken into custody on an outstanding warrant unrelated to the current enforcement action. Authorities executed an arrest warrant February 19th for Baez and Avila. At the time, no one else was taken into custody or detained. If convicted, both face up to 10 years in federal prison and a fine up to $250,000. Homeland Security investigations conducted this investigation. Now, I understand the resentment that many people have been vocal about. At the end of the day, people say, what would you do if that was your mom, if that was your dad, if that was your family member? How would you react? Don't you feel that you should have a little bit more compassion? At the end of the day, we are supportive of people who seek the American dream. At the end of the day, this country was formed on immigrants. Immigrants were the ones that built the expressways, the highways, construction. When we talk about New York City and all the founding the founding cities that were established, they were all immigrants. But we have to recognize that this, ladies and gentlemen, is a demonstration by President Trump's administration that this is different. What did we see during President Biden's administration? How he had open borders. And look, what did this lead to? This led to many protests. This led to many people shouting, why are they doing this? These people aren't hardcore criminals. Many people are arguing, hey, this is genocide. They're colonizing the RGV. This is racism. Again, whenever we compare the administration of President Biden to now Trump, we see how President Biden had open borders, how that administration gave tons of benefits to undocumented individuals. Now, while I am supportive of social programs, I would prefer, I'm going to get some flack for it, but I prefer that we take care of ours before we take care of others. My issue with the President Biden's administration was that there is a lot of homelessness in the United States. We have our veterans who are suffering greatly, psychological issues, PTSD. Many of them do not have a good quality of life. This caused a great stir here in South Texas, throughout the country, but most importantly, for our focal point and for today's story, many people criticized and started waving the Mexican flag. While there are people that are saying, how could you be in another country waving the Mexican flag? If you like it so much, go back. We understand heritage. We understand of being proud of our roots. And we can understand why people are proud to wave the flag. At the end of the day, many of us Hispanics identify with being Mexican. We understand that. Many have placed their blame on local leaders. Here before you, I have where individuals were protesting outside of Abby's Bakery shortly after the raid. And if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm right, is that Jared Hockema? Jared Hockema, what are you doing? This is I didn't know this. Wow. My production team were working on preparing for this morning's episode. And again, the way we operate, ladies and gentlemen, is, and I'm very proud to have a good group of people, of participants on this page that do contribute, that do want these stories to come to light. There are several stories that have been coming up, and we'll be addressing them at the appropriate time. And they fed me this picture, and the only thing that I saw was the Los Fresnos mayor. I saw that and I said, oh, people are upset at the Los Fresnos mayor because he's a Republican. He's a Republican, and there are many Democrats here in South Texas and in the Rio Grande Valley, and they're upset. How can you be upset of, how can you support this, mayor? We have a sign to the left that says deport Elon, but I didn't notice this. We had Jared. Is that Jared Hockema? I could be wrong. But we have Jared Hockema holding the sign of the mayor of the Los Fresnos, of the city of Los Fresnos, and he has a sign that says deport Trump. I didn't know that. Again, I'm not sure if that is Jared Hockema or not in white, but that's who I believe it is. To the left, we have a sign that says KKK, MAGA, same concept, different hat. Well, the reason why we're talking about this today, ladies and gentlemen, is because this case has gone to trial in federal court. And again, I'm a layperson. I'm not an expert in the law. Unlike Minerva Peña, the BISD board trustee, who says she is familiar with the law, that she knows the law. I would never make a claim such as that. But this case has been one that went through the court system very quickly. I did have the fortune of working in the court system. I'm not an expert, but I did see, I guess, how courts operate. I have a general understanding. Usually, cases take a year, 2 years, depending on the severity and how complex the case is. But these individuals were arrested in February of 2025 of this year. We are in the middle of August. That's 6 months. It's possible that the attorneys, they did ask for a speedy trial. Currently, right now, the federal government did rest this case against these owners of Los Fresnos. And what is interesting to learn from this all, ladies and gentlemen, is that what has transpired as of late, there was several witnesses that testified in court. One thing that we saw was how, since this bakery We learned through the trial that there was an anonymous tip that accused the owners here on the screen, accused them of what they were being charged with. There was a first witness on Tuesday. He was a Homeland Security investigator. He testified that he received an anonymous tip, which ultimately launched the investigation into this bakery. They got this tip back in December. Now, during the raid, the federal agents, they did testify that they found 8 undocumented people inside the business, which led to the arrest of the owners. Ultimately, this Homeland Security investigator, he testified that these employees, they weren't paying rent there. Now, the tip also stated that there were children inside, but the investigator clarified that there were no minors that were found during the raid. In the testimony, the investigator, he attributed Abby's Bakery, one of their employees. He stated that this individual was not trained or coached to hide. This individual that was arrested was the second person to testify in this trial. And this individual, he shared his story of how he migrated from Tamaulipas into the United States and how he found work at Abby's Bakery. The worker testified that he was not smuggled in by the bakery owners and that he crossed the United States on his own. He testified, I did it on my own. Things were different in Mexico. They were difficult. I started talking to a friend. I sold my car and I came over here. He testified that he paid 47,000 pesos, which is equivalent to $2,500 in United States currency, to cross the border by himself this past September. Once he arrived in the United States, this individual, he learned about the bakery and he met with the owners who hired him as a seasonal worker. He stated that the owner, Mr. Baez, he picked him up and he took him to the bakery once he crossed the river into the United States. Now, the smugglers, they asked him if he had somebody to call, and he said, yes, Baez, because he previously worked at this bakery. Now, this individual, this witness did testify that he was offered, but not forced to stay at Abby's Bakery with shelter and food. There was a report, ladies and gentlemen, of an additional room that was found in the same shopping plaza where the bakery is located. The extra room was reportedly used to harbor undocumented workers and was equipped with 6 beds, a TV, and a shower. And during his 5 months living under the owner's roof, this witness testified that he earned extra money by cutting grass for the owner. What we have seen, ladies and gentlemen, from these types of cases is how there have been instances where many undocumented workers, they're malnourished, they're treated with disrespect, they are forced into, we've heard heinous activities of women being forced into prostitution, of them being exploited for sex, for other benefits. And they threaten them with, if you say something, I'm going to deport you. I'm going to get you deported. While we understand how community members are outraged by this and have been quick to jump to the gun and say President Trump and his administration no valen dos cacahuates and this, that, and that, and the Los Fresnos mayor, and this is because of you and KKK, and this is racism. We understand the resentment. We understand people's, again, this is a humanitarian issue. And I don't want to sound cold or bitter to this, because at the end of the day, we have family members. that are immigrants. We believe that this country should be run with law and order. We are supportive of individuals that want to obtain the American dream. We really are. But what we have seen has been the other side of the coin. Undocumented workers, we have heard, who work at bars, restaurants, they're exploited. We've even heard of areas such as Southwest Keys that has been the news as of late. Children there have been pregnant. Many alleged they've been taken advantage of. They've been raped. This is something that is difficult for us to understand, and maybe we don't want to talk about these issues, but that's the reality of life, ladies and gentlemen. There are people out there that genuinely want to help these individuals, but by the same token, they want to exploit these individuals. When we talk about fair pay, the minimum wage in the United States, I think, is $7.25. It might have bumped up to $8.25. I'm not sure. And if we talk about let's look very quickly. What is the average salary for a day in Mexico? I think it's like $5, if I'm not mistaken. $20. The median salary is casi 400 pesos, which is approximately $400. $20. So we understand why people are wanting to come into this country. They get paid peanuts. And while here they might get paid, we hope, minimum wage, they get taken advantage of. We have seen how these ICE raids, how they have caused fear within people. This has affected local establishments, restaurants, construction sites. We understand that. But now this administration in power is a total 180 of what we have seen. We have seen how former administrations, predominantly Democrat, have had open borders. They have laxed on their immigration laws. And there are people that argue, hey, this country is founded on immigrants. Who's going to take the trash? Who's going to work the fields? Who's going to be in the kitchens? President Trump's administration was very vocal when they said, we're going to create jobs for Americans. People argue, white folks don't want to, Americans don't want to do the ugly work, don't want to do the dirty work. But again, it is a change in culture, because at the end of the day, this is also affecting the pocketbooks of these owners. They don't pay taxes on these people. They pay them mostly in cash. So what's happening, ladies and gentlemen, is that they're disrupting the system. And this is something that's not going to change from one day to the next. No, by no means. This is an issue that is going to take years in the making to change the whole dynamics of it all. And I know what you're thinking, Frankie, who cares? But I go back to what I have heard of cases of women being exploited, women doing things against their will, women being raped, young children possibly. They live in fear. I am all of support of individuals who seek the American dream. That is what we all want, right? Well, we learned, ladies and gentlemen, that the government yesterday, they did rest their case against these business owners who are accused of hiring and housing undocumented immigrants. during the second day of trial, the jurors, they did hear from the bakery employees who are identified as being illegally in the country. Their testimony, some of them were pre-recorded. They were played for the jury as the men were deported following their interview. Now, jurors, they did hear of a suite number 5 that the federal agents did say that this is where these individuals stayed at. The men were asked if they were required to sleep there. They said no, and that they were free to leave and were not held against their will. One of the witnesses testified that the lead baker, who was the lead baker, he said he was paid $100 to work there and has been working there for 10 years. Now, they didn't specify, was he getting paid $100 a day, $100 a week, $100 a month? But the lead baker and manager of this establishment was getting paid $100 to work. Now, they did surveillance on this establishment, and throughout testimony, they did confirm that the workers were paid $8 an hour. And today, Wednesday, the trial is expected to resume, with the owner's son is expected to testify by the defense team. Ching. It's hilarious. Sylvia Atkinson, the United States is so racist that the people risk their lives to experience it. Good morning, Miss Atkinson. Glad to have you on the program. How do you feel in this situation, ladies and gentlemen? Again, living in a border town, we understand the seriousness of this issue. Many people have been very vocal and critical of President Trump and his administration. Many people have stated that this new administration is racist, that they are deporting people, that they are disrupting the lives of people, that are separating families by doing this. How do you feel in regards to this case? The defense today will start with laying out why they feel that the owners should not be charged with this case. We will be following this story and letting you know how this case ultimately unravels and the outcome of this case. Ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel titled Frankie Olivo TV. Remember, we will come on Monday through Friday at 9 a.m., 9:05-ish, religiously. So make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel titled Frankie Olivo TV. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Frankie Olivo, and this is Good Morning Bronzo. Peace!